Hello, my name is Vasily and I'm going to become a front-end engineer. Now I'm attending a REST School front-end course. So today I'm going to talk about GraphQL and my presentation consists of two main parts. The first is I'm going to speak about the very basics of GraphQL. After that we are going to introduce ourselves to main tools of GraphQL toolchain, Apollo and Relay. And last but not least, I'm going to show you a very simple example on how to use GraphQL with Fetch API. So let's go. What's GraphQL? As I say on their website, GraphQL is a query language for APIs, and secondly, it's a runtime for fulfilling queries written on this query language. So it's two main parts, language and runtime on the backend. So what it gives us? It gives us the understandable description of the data, the receiving exactly what we want from a server, and for backend it gives ability to easier evolving APIs and adding new features, more flexible backend development. It was developed inside Facebook teams when they faced with problems of developing mobile web applications, and they invented GraphQL at that time. Later in 2015 they open sourced it with specification, and then GraphQL became famous and now is using in many languages, not only JavaScript but many other languages in many environments and by many companies and teams around the world. Let's remember about REST API. REST API, as we know, is a concept of network-based software, architectural concept, while the GraphQL is a specification and a query language for retrieving data from the endpoint. In REST API, we get complete data sets, complete objects. We need we can use query parameters and IP URL parameters, but finally we get object with all its data, with all its fields. While in GraphQL we can have it our way. We can describe the data we need, the fields, the key value pairs we need from the server, from the endpoint, and get exactly what we want, not alter them or doing something with them on our side. We just get the data in the way we can use them as we receive them. So let's see the meme of Cheeseburger, which have been around for a while. On the left side we have REST API, Cheeseburger API. We send request and take back response in which we have the whole object. We are not able to choose what ingredients we want. We just get the cheeseburger as it is every time, the same cheeseburger. But maybe we don't need the whole ingredients, the whole data sets, key value pairs. And on the other hand, from the GraphQL query we can describe the data we need and finally get the cheeseburger which consists from only ingredients we want. In other words, we get objects of key value pairs of our description which is in our query to the GraphQL service. So GraphQL and REST API again. REST API have different endpoints. Each endpoint gives us a special data. Then we combine this data on our front end and can do something with them. On the other hand, however, GraphQL operates with only one endpoint, and GraphQL service on the backend combines data from different sources and gives us this data as a response on our GraphQL query. It's very important to remember that GraphQL is neither alternative nor substitution to REST. So it depends on use cases, and teams and companies use both as REST as GraphQL API in their projects. Both technologies are alive and evolving constantly. So how it works again? We describe our data in a strongly typed system on backend using schema definition language. Then on the front end engineers write queries and they retrieve data, describe it in these queries. So three main parts: backend describing data and providing functions, front end writing queries and getting this data. For example, on the GraphQL service is created by defining types and fields on those types. So on the backend, we're defining type query and type user, and also provide functions to retrieve this data from the server by query from the front end. So the functions are query me and username. So when they on the front end side they will write query like this, it means that they want on the front end we want or they want object with only one field, and the value of this field is also the object with only one field. And at the end we on the front end get JSON like this, exactly one object with field me, which value is also the object with one field name and value of Luke Skywalker. It's fine, it's very easy, and we get the data that we can use from fly. Another example where GraphQL shines is retrieving big arrays of data. For example, academy posts. Each post can be very big, quite a big object with many fields, but maybe we need only one field, title, on our front end. So in query language, in query written on GraphQL, we can describe that we need only title from each post, and eventually we get array of posts, but each post has only one field, title. It's very cool because we don't need to process the big responses from backend on our front end. We just get the data that we can instantly use in our user interface. So the second part of my presentation is toolchain. There are two main tools of GraphQL environment, GraphQL community. It's Apollo. It's a super graph platform which have many features, many cool, nice official courses where you can learn on these courses and get official certifications. They has also client, backend, and cloud features that companies and developers can use to boost their using of GraphQL language, GraphQL queries. So the second tool in toolchain is Relay. Relay, on the other hand, is a JavaScript framework for using GraphQL inside React applications. It allows components to declare what that data they need, and then Relay figures out how to efficiently fetch it. Also, during build step, Relay optimizes queries, which improves performance during runtime. So that's it. That's almost all about my presentation. And at the end, I would like to share with you with resources I used in this presentation. GraphQL official site, the good article about difference between GraphQL and REST API, which can help you to understand GraphQL more. Apollo and Relay official website, and the last is I'm strongly encourage you to watch this documentary on YouTube about inventing GraphQL. It's very actionable and inspiration. and looks like a very good action film, and shows you that developers can be something like rock stars when they face face difficulties and invent something new, which then change the whole industry or some area. So it's very inspiring, very exciting film, and I advise you to watch it. So the last part of today's presentation is a simple example. So how can we use GraphQL in the minimal way? The minimal way, we can use GraphQL inside our Fetch API. For that, for demonstration, I made a little demonstrative micro project, where we have one button, some styles to this button, and what this button do, here it is, this button, get launches. This button will use SpaceX GraphQL API to retrieve data and then console log it here. So I added event listener on click, and this function get launches will console log data retrieving from GraphQL server. So GraphQL server SpaceX GraphQL API, it has an endpoint. So we use this endpoint in our fetch function in its first argument. So its first argument is endpoint. Remember that GraphQL uses one endpoint to retrieve data from different sources. Method. Typically, when we use GraphQL, we use method post to get data. And the main interesting part is body section. In body section, inside the JSON stringify, we pass an object with only one field query. And the query is a string of query. Where we can get this query? We can get this query as an example from the server. So here they have such an example of the query, and I can use that. They have also this editor where you can use many different queries and try to use them and see what data they send you back on these queries. But I use this big query to retrieve data about launches of rockets of SpaceX. I take this query and I create one variable, and in this variable will be binded to string template. In this string template consists of this query, and then I use this variable inside fetch call, inside body section, inside object which we pass to stringify, and the field query will be linked to this variable, and use this query as a GraphQL query to query SpaceX GraphQL query API. And let's try and push our button. Something wrong? Yes, I don't use comma. After some waiting, we get what we get. We are going to get data from this server, from this SpaceX GraphQL API. We used its endpoint and the example of the query inside our fetch request. Boom, and boom, we have our data here. Here we go. This data from the GraphQL API. So let's edit our query. Maybe I don't want to get a mission ID. I don't need rocket company and its characteristics. I only need its name, and That's it. I edited the query, and let's take another request, and we get back a response with on the data described in our query: mission name, rocket name, and the site name, and also a launch date local. So that's it. That's a very simple example how we can use GraphQL inside fetch. We use endpoint, we use method post, and inside body section we use object with a query, describe it in schema definition language like that. GraphQL special syntax to get from the GraphQL service on the backend the data we need to use, for example, in our user interface. That's it. Maybe this video be quite long, excuse me, but it's very interesting for me to share with you my knowledge, which I have from study this area of GraphQL queries. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.